So things are really bad right now. We all know this. But things are also really bad for Donald Trump and getting worse. And that's what I want to talk about here. Because I'm worried when I see what some people say, those who are opposed to Donald Trump. I worry about the attitude. I worry about people giving up just because they feel that that trying to stop this man is futile, that there's nothing we can do. Encouragingly, though, I'm seeing less of that, admittedly, but I still do see some of it. And it's not just that people are pessimistic, but that they're fatalistic. And too many people think that Trump is going to win and we can't stop him. He's going to win on everything. He's going to get his way on everything, and there's nothing we can do to stop him. And we all know what he wants to do. He wants to be a dictator. There's no doubt about it. And they're taking steps to achieve that. There's no doubt about that. He doesn't believe in the Constitution or the rule of law at all. To him, he is the law. In fact, he's even said almost those exact words. I don't know if you recall, a few weeks back, there was a meeting with a group of governors. And in attendance was the governor of Maine, and Trump had singled her out to put her on the spot, to bully her. And it was over one of his executive orders. And he said something to the effect of, "You're going to follow my executive order? You're going to do what I said?" And she said that she would follow the law. And she would follow the law of her state. That as governor, that's what she is required to do. And Trump angrily shot back at her something to the effect of, "I am the law." I think he might have said, "We are the law." But, meaning his regime. But his point was clear. He is the law in his mind. The actual law doesn't matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. The states don't matter. State law doesn't matter. What he says is law. That's how he views it. That's what he wants it to be here in the United States. He wants to be an absolute dictator. And so we all understand this. And it's been very discouraging in the first few months of this regime to see so many people bend the knee and cower in fear and give in to this man. But the point of my video here is to tell you that not all is lost. And really, if you're feeling yourself believing that everything is lost and there's nothing we can do, and you might as well not spend your time worrying about it because there's nothing you can do anyway and it's just going to drive you crazy, which I understand. And, sometimes you really need to take a step back and walk away from this stuff every once in a while. Take a break from watching the news. The shit show will be here when you get back. Take some time for yourself. But if you give in to that fatalism, that plays into Trump's hands. That's what he wants. All aspiring dictators need that. They need people to stop resisting. They need people to believe that there's nothing they can do to stop the dictator. That's part of the strategy here. This flood the zone strategy by throwing so much at us all at once. Our system is not designed to handle that. The checks and balances in place, most of which are failing because a lot of those have to come from Congress, and Congress is controlled by Republicans, so we're not going to get any resistance from them, at least not right now. and maybe we won't until we have an opportunity to vote in the midterms next year. And so there's not the immediate check that Congress could provide. But there are actors in the system who are standing up to him, especially in the courts and in the states. But especially in the courts, that process takes a long time, depending upon the case. Sometimes they can move quickly on an emergency basis procedurally, and they have ruled against him many times, and he will continue to lose. And I know you're probably thinking, well, he just ignores them anyway. And to a large extent, on some of these cases, yes, he is. He's not going to get away with that forever. I really don't believe that he will. And there is reason to believe that the tide is starting to turn. And I'm going to report on those things frequently because I think it's important that we not give up. We have to see that all is not lost. Because if all you see is the doom and gloom day in and day out, it's easy to give up and surrender. And it seems that the media, not just mainstream media, but also alternate media, social media, places like YouTube. I don't see everything that's going on out there and everything that's being reported, but just from my vantage point, just generally looking at it, it seems that there's a lot of doom and gloom as an angle to the reporting and to the opinion that's being offered on social media. And I think there's reward to that, which is, there's market forces, I think, that reward that. When I see a lot of these videos talking about, oh, it's all over, Trump's going to declare martial law and all of that. And he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law, and then the country's over and he's going to have control over all of us. Those kinds of stories and videos seem to get rewarded with lots of views and clicks and things. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of that stuff. Now, there's certainly things in there to be concerned about and to take seriously, but a lot of it is, a lot of it I think is ridiculous. I've dealt with the subject of martial law a few times on this channel. I'll probably do it some more. I don't want to get myself off on that track right now, but I am not concerned about martial law for the reasons that I've already stated. Go look up those videos if you're interested. But there are my point is, it's important not to lose hope. Don't just focus on the negative. Don't focus on the doom and gloom. There's nothing we can do. Because there's a lot of reasons for optimism. We're only 100 days. I don't think have we even hit 100 days yet? I don't think so. We're only about 3 months into this disastrous administration, and people are waking up. They really, truly are. And there is beginning to be real opposition. And from parts of the society that you would not have expected it. Is Fox News starting to turn on Donald Trump? I think the coverage of Donald Trump on Fox News is beginning to change, and in other, right-wing publications and outlets, I think they're beginning to change their reporting of Donald Trump. They know he's a disaster. They do. A lot of them do anyway. I mean, a lot of people on Fox are part of the cult, and you're not going to see Fox News turn on him overnight. They can't. They'll lose all their audience, and they may never completely turn on him. I don't expect that. But if even they just begin to just report accurately on some of his catastrophic failures, and they start to report on the damage that he's doing to the country, not all the time, but if they start sneaking it in here and there, that could make a real difference. We don't need the entire Fox News audience to wake up. They never will. We don't need the Trump cult to snap out of it. They're not going to. Maybe one day they will, and I hope for their sake and that of their family and friends that they do, but we don't need them to. They're too small a part of this country. We can turn this around and defeat Republicans in the midterms and impeach and remove him from office, which I believe needs to be the goal as soon as we can. I don't have high hopes that we can do it in the next, before the midterms, but I am very confident that if we do what we need to do between now and then, that we can win majorities in both the House and the Senate of sufficient size that we can impeach and remove him from office. And he needs to be. And then he needs to be prosecuted for his crimes. That should be the goal, at least in my opinion. As a former prosecutor, I don't want just political justice. I want actual legal justice. So that's my goal. Anyway, we don't need all of them to wake up. If we can just wake up some of them, some people who voted for Donald Trump, some people who didn't bother voting at all, and there are tens of millions of them. And we're beginning to see it. Now, I got a couple of video clips for you from Fox News that you wouldn't have seen not that long ago. But they're starting to question this man. They're starting to criticize him. They have to do it slowly. They can't jolt their audience. They can't, they have to just slowly begin to work these criticisms into their coverage, or else their audience will abandon them. That's why, they learned that lesson following the 2020 election when they were accurately reporting on Trump having lost. They weren't pushing Trump's lies. They were reporting the truth. In fact, it was Fox News, who was the first to call Arizona for Joe Biden. And that really pissed Trump off. And he went on the attack against Fox News. And they lost a ton of audience. So they made a business decision at that point in time to just go pedal to the metal with the bullshit and the lies and the propaganda, and whatever Trump wants us to say, that's what we'll say. And we know that that's what they did because we have the Dominion lawsuit and the depositions and all the admissions from people inside Fox that they knew they were lying, but they had to for business reasons. And so they learned that lesson, and they're not going to make that mistake again. And that's why they will never completely, I don't believe, just go all out against Donald Trump, or that they will just immediately start reporting accurately on all of this and correcting his lies every time he friggin' lies. They're not going to do that because they'll lose their audience. It'll be too much of a shock to the system that they'll just abandon Fox in droves. And they got to do it slowly, and they're beginning to. Now, this first clip is of Bret Baier talking about recent polling data showing that Donald Trump is, and we've talked about this here, is at this point in his presidency the most unpopular president in the history of polling on this subject. So take a look at this video.
President talking tariffs and the economy. If you look at our new Fox News poll at 100 days job approval compared to other presidents, there you see the president at 44%, and you see his first term at 45% at this mark, the 100-day mark. We have other new polls that are revealing some concerns about the economy. Let's talk about that.
So a couple things about that. You wouldn't have seen this that long ago. They would not report on Donald Trump being the most unpopular president and compare him on the screen, putting it right up on the screen with the numbers, comparing Trump negatively, relatively speaking, to other recent presidents, showing that he is more unpopular than Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Joe Biden. And they have this second term of Trump as the most unpopular at this point in history at 44%, followed by the second most unpopular president at this point in history was Trump in his first term at 45%. And then this isn't, all the presidents in history. This was just comparing him to recent presidents. Biden had a 54% approval at this time. Obama had a 62%, and Bush had a 63% approval rating at this point in time. So just the fact that they're reporting this, doing a segment on it, is, I think, a change, because they know Trump watches this stuff. He's going to hear about it. and they risk his attack, they risk his wrath, they risk losing voters, but they're doing it. And this one is even more illustrative of the point. Here's a guest, Robert Wolf, is on. Take a look at this. He is discussing, Trump's disastrous policies here with tariffs and everything. And I think this guy is Trace Gallagher, I believe his name is, along with Kellyanne Conway. Does she still go by Conway? I don't know. She's divorced from George Conway. But as you're listening to this clip, by the way, keep your eye on Kellyanne, because she's got this phony plastic smile on her face like the entire time. And to me, it's like, I could stop watching. Is she ever going to break that smile? I don't want you to get distracted by what's being said, but you might want to watch her. Anyway, take a look at this clip.
I don't know, Robert. Some of the people we talked to say incompetence probably the wrong word. Unclear might be a better word. What do you say?
I mean, I've been in finance for 40 years. This is probably the biggest manufactured crisis I've seen, with a bunch of unforced errors. The execution of Liberation Day was pathetic. I mean, you have Kevin Hassett in 2019 be very clear: trade wars are bad, tariffs are a tax. Steve Moore, another Trump advisor: trade wars are bad, tariffs are a tax. The GOP: tariffs are a tax, trade wars are bad, we're for free trade. You saw April until, for the most part, the president blinked both on Fed Chairman Powell, which I'm glad, as well as the China trade war. Mm-hmm. Then the markets recovered somewhat, but it was on for the worst month since 1932. And that's not even considering what's going on with bonds, where there has been an incredible lack of confidence in the U.S. dollar and U.S. investments.
So this to me is a big deal. Because, again, this is another story that you don't typically see on Fox News, or the kind of guest you don't typically see on Fox News. Usually if you have someone who's critical of Trump, it's a panel, right? And it's like 5-1 against that person. It's a panel so that they all can gang up on that person and drown out their opinion. But this is their way to be able to say, oh, see, we have other opinions on this network, but it's always 5-1, and they just, gang up on the person. So the fact that you have this person forcefully speaking out against Donald Trump, and it's not on a panel discussion where he's being, bombarded from all sides. But not only that, they're letting him talk. They're letting him lay out this case against Donald Trump, criticizing Donald Trump very harshly. And they're not interrupting him. They're not shutting him down. They're not calling him a liar. They're not, trying to break up his train of thought and jump in mid-sentence, go but, and then give the Trump talking points, as you usually see on Fox News. So the fact that they're allowing this man on there to criticize Trump, not in a panel discussion, not interrupting him, letting him make his points in full, I think is a big deal. Okay, it's not like they didn't know what this guy was going to say or what his point of view is. By the way, back to Kellyanne Conway. I know I'm so superficial, but I couldn't stop looking at her plastic smile. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of little kids on picture day at school, because they don't know how to smile naturally yet. So they go there on picture day. They're all awkwardly dressed up in their nice clothes that they don't quite know how to wear, and they look, anyways, they get there and the cameraman tells them to smile, and they all do that same smile where it's so unnatural looking, and it's basically them just showing their teeth, like, you know what I mean? They don't know how to smile. They think it's just showing their teeth. And that's what Kellyanne Conway was doing for like a minute and a half, just like the whole time. And I couldn't stop looking at her. Anyway, couple of points before I wrap this up. As to that first video with the Trump approval rating, there's other polls out, and I'm going to get to one here in a minute. before I close out this video. This poll that Fox News showed puts Trump at 44% right now. A Pew Research poll just came out, puts Trump at 40%. Anyway, so yeah, why don't I just get to this Pew Research poll, and then I'll call it quits here. A few of the findings of this poll, as I said, 40% approval rating. Lowest, again, for any president at this point in his presidency. 40%. Now, if this is accurate, you know, for you Trump voters, any of you who stuck with this video the whole way, 40% is just 1 point away from 39%, which is in the 30s. Now, it's just a matter of time, and it's probably not that long from now before we get a poll that shows Trump approval rating in the 30s. And that's going to be a big deal. Now, it's from this Pew Research poll, if he were to be at 39, that's only a 1 point difference. Not a big deal, but it has a lot of symbolic importance. He'll be in the 30s, and that will get attention. And you know whose attention it'll start to get? Republicans in Congress. They see these same polls. They know the facts. The politics in the Republican Party still are such that they can't break with Trump, at least not right now. But they see these polls. They're worried about him. Believe me. And if his polls go into 30, into the 30s, they are going to start panicking big time. A couple other things from this poll. 59% of the American people approve of Trump's tariffs. 59%. 59%. You'd be hard pressed to get 59% of Americans to agree on anything, and they agree that Donald Trump's tariffs are bad. And by the way, I've made this point. By Trump doing so much on tariffs and everything, he has taken complete ownership of the economy. It is going to be, given everything that he's done, it's going to be very difficult for him to blame this on Joe Biden. Doesn't mean he won't try. Doesn't mean it won't work with his mindless cult. But I don't think most rational people are going to buy it. He owns the economy because of all that he's done with tariffs and everything else. He has made a clean break with respect to the economy, Biden versus the Trump administration. Those tariffs and all the havoc he has caused and all the executive order, everything that he's done, he has made a clean break, I believe, in the minds of most rational people. Trump now owns the economy. And there was a poll recently to that effect, too. A clear majority of the American people in that poll, I wish I could remember exactly the numbers or which poll it was, but it was a majority believed that Trump is most responsible now for the state of the economy. Another finding from Pew. 55% disapprove of cuts that Trump is making to the federal government. And by the way, when you talk, because one of the things we need to be doing is driving Trump's poll numbers down. We drive his poll numbers down, we weaken him, we weaken Republicans, we make Republicans panic, we make, Republicans stop defending him as much. He is a lame duck as we get closer to the election. Things are going to start changing, especially if we drive his poll numbers down. And that's what we all need to be working on. And when you talk about these cuts, I see it reported far too often, these Doge cuts and cuts that Elon Musk is doing. Stop playing into Trump's hand that way. This is not Doge. This is Trump. This is not Elon Musk. This is Trump. If you want to say Doge, if you want to say Musk, also say Trump in the same sentence, because this is Trump. Don't give voters a reason to disconnect Trump from what is going on with respect to these cuts in the federal government. This is all Trump. None of this would be happening but for Trump. Trump approves of all of this. And it's horribly unpopular. 55% disapprove. As to the courts and his lawlessness, 78% of respondents to this poll say that Trump must follow orders of federal courts. 78%. That number goes up to 88% if it's an order of the Supreme Court. 88% of Americans. 65% of Republicans say that Trump must stop doing something if a federal court tells him that it is illegal. 65% of Republicans said that, including 82% of Republicans who say that if the Supreme Court ruled that something that Donald Trump is doing is illegal. 82% of Republicans. And he's doing a lot that is illegal. And he is going to lose a lot in court. There are going to be a lot of courts striking him down, and they're going to do so in very strong language. The courts know what's up, most of them, even a lot of Republican appointees. I read to you that opinion last week from Judge Harvey Wilkinson with the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And he hammered Donald Trump in powerful and beautiful language. He's a Reagan appointee, a traditional conservative. Back when being a conservative actually meant something, you know, conservative now means whatever Donald Trump says. It means nothing now. And a lot of people on the bench who were appointed by Republicans are going to be smacking Donald Trump down harshly. And these things are going to have a cumulative effect. I talked in my last video about polls being a lagging indicator. They lag behind events. And a lot of reason for that is because a lot of Americans don't pay much attention to anything that's going on. They don't have an idea. And it takes a long time for them to hear about something. And that's why, you know, I don't want to get off. Communication is important. Communication is important. Repetition is important. This is something that Trump instinctively understands and has used to his benefit. You can't just say something once. You got to say it over and over again and keep it simple. All right. Anyway, the point is, you can't say something once and expect the American people to get it. You can't expect them to say it, 10 times, 50 times. You got to say it hundreds of times for it to break through. And maybe one court decision going against Donald Trump won't make any difference because most people won't even hear about it. The fact that there's going to be so many repeatedly on so many issues, it's going to have a cumulative effect. It's going to start to break through. And it already is starting to break through. Donald Trump is now underwater on the economy. He's also underwater in terms of his polling on immigration, the issue that is supposed to be the best for him. More people now disapprove of the way he's handling immigration than approve. That's because these court cases, it's starting to break through. The criticisms of Trump is starting to break through. The lawlessness is starting to get through the American people. And it's even starting to be reported on Fox. And here's something else to keep in mind with respect to Fox. It's owned by Rupert Murdoch, as is the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal is going even more heavily against Donald Trump. And when you put these two things together, I think it's clear that Rupert Murdoch has turned on Trump, or is turning on Trump, or at least to some degree. That he's allowing these things to be said, and probably not just allowing it, he's probably ordering it to be published on the Wall Street Journal and to be covered on Fox News. Now, he's treading more lightly with Fox News because it's a different audience. I mean, the Wall Street Journal is a print publication, and most Trump cultists, don't read. Many of them can't, which is why they don't like people to be educated, because it makes them feel inferior. All these other people learning how to read and write and such. It makes them feel inferior since many of them can't. But so it's a different audience, the Wall Street Journal. It's a more intelligent group of Republicans who read that, much more traditional conservatives who aren't as many of them a part of the Trump cult. So he can be a little bit more in your face over there. He can push the anti-Trump sentiment a little more with the Wall Street Journal, but he's starting to do it also with Fox News. Let's hope that this continues. And I think it will, because Donald Trump is a disaster. And he is a disaster for all these moneyed interests You know, all these, the billionaire class and the oligarchs, they understand that this buffoon that they thought would give them everything that they wanted is a human wrecking ball who is destroying everything, and that's not good for them. And so they're beginning to turn. Doesn't mean they're on the right side or they're turning on him for the right reasons. But look, when you're in a fight for, you know, for the existence of your constitutional republic, you make your allies where you can. You join forces with people when you can, and disagree with them later. But, you know, let's save this republic. And if these people at least wake up to the extent that they realize that this guy is a disaster. And to that point, you know, one of the articles was an op-ed piece published by the Wall Street Journal last week calling for the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump. Maybe not outright calling for it, but suggesting in writing that impeaching and removing him from office might be best to protect the economy from his complete destruction. So the point is, there are positive signs out there. I mean, there's certainly a lot of bad. But the point is, you can get lost in the bad to the point that you give up. Trump needs you to give up. So don't give up. Look for reasons for optimism and create the reasons for optimism. You know, you be the change. We be the change. You're seeing it out there with these demonstrations and these protests. How many people have taken to the streets already? We're only 3 months into this Trump administration. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. Don't want to sugarcoat it too much, but it's important that we keep our optimism. We can win this fight. We can get justice. We can visit justice upon this man. And to me, part of that justice includes impeaching and removing him from office as soon as we are able. And if we do things right, we're going to be able to do it at some point. And then prosecuting him for his crimes. And I don't want to get too far off on this now. I'll just end it here. Many of the crimes that he's committing right now, even under that disastrous opinion of the Supreme Court giving him immunity, are not covered by that court's decision. A lot of the crimes that he seems to be committing now, and I believe he is committing many, many crimes right now, many of them, he will not be immune for those. So anyways, just little reasons for optimism. Keep up the fight. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. If you look in the description of the video below, I've had a lot of people ask for merch. So I've designed some things, and I've got more in the works. I have some ideas, but I've got a coffee mug with the little blue bear. If you've watched my videos, you know about the little blue bear. Well, now the little blue bear has his own coffee mug, which you can get if you're so interested. There's other things on there too. Anyway, links to the Romano Report shop in the description below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.